All right. Hello, everybody. Joining us on the KSAT Weather Authority app. I'm going to do a quick mic check just to make sure things are working on our side, and we'll be with you in just a few minutes. All right, 8 o'clock on the dot here this Sunday evening. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the KSAT Weather Authority app. I'm meteorologist Mia Montgomery here, and we are tracking these cold temperatures and already some reports of very light freezing drizzle across the far northern portions of Bexar County near the airport, even up into Leon Springs. So if you've seen any of that drizzle here, that's likely going to start sticking to car windshields and things of that nature, really those elevated surfaces. But just checked in with the National Weather Service, and they are on the same page as we are in terms of the same thinking that this is going to be very, very, very light. And if we see any slick spots when it comes to bridges and overpasses and things like that, a lot of that not developing till later tonight and into tomorrow morning. So I want to talk about everything that we have going on. Of course, today has been much colder than what we saw yesterday. The Arctic air has been spilling into the region, and now that we're seeing a little disturbance push across the state of Texas, that's allowing just enough energy to spark up some of these pockets of patchy light drizzle. Even a little bit of light freezing rain is expected in a few locations before the sun comes up tomorrow. So because of that potential, really anything that we do find out there by the time all is said and done, it's not really going to amount to a whole lot, up to about 1/10 of an inch. But so yes, that's light, which is good. Nothing like what we saw last year in late January, early February up into the hill country, and of course nothing like what we saw almost 3 years ago in February of 2021. But we will need to monitor elevated surfaces, so things like your cars, patio furniture, street signs. By tomorrow morning, I do think we could see a bit of a glaze on those types of items, and then bridges and overpasses certainly could find a few slick spots by tomorrow morning there as well. Of course, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. A lot of folks have the day off, but if you do have to be on the roadways tomorrow morning, or maybe you're even traveling to the march, which has been delayed, now starts at 11 a.m. You will want to try to avoid those elevated roadways if possible. If you can't, be sure that you are taking things very, very slow. So that's going to be the story, along with the hard freeze, falling temperatures through the overnight tonight and into early Monday morning. By the way, the freezing drizzle and the light freezing rain, that's going to push out of here by midday tomorrow, and then we're pretty much dry throughout the rest of the week, just left with the cold and the wind in some cases through about Wednesday morning. So here's Monday, hard morning freeze along with that icy light glaze in a few locations. I do anticipate most areas getting down into the mid-20s, maybe even some upper teens across the hill country. So hopefully all of your hard freeze preparations are finished. We also will see wind chill values in the teens tomorrow, gusts upwards of about 20 miles per hour expected out of the north. Not finished with the hard freezes though. Tuesday and into Wednesday, upper teens, low 20s expected on the thermometer. And by Tuesday morning specifically, we're expecting the winds to pick up even more so. So single-digit wind chill values are in the forecast. That's something to already keep in your mind as you prepare to head back to work on Tuesday morning. The kiddos are getting ready to go back to school. Please remember to dress very appropriately and warmly, for it is going to be very, very cold, especially in terms of those wind chill values. That's on Tuesday. Okay, so here's the setup in the picture across south central Texas. A good chunk of the area near San Antonio and points off to the north below freezing. 30 right now in Pleasanton, 25 here in San Antonio. So we've really seen those temperatures drop very quickly here over the past hour or two. Above freezing the farther south and west that you go, upper 30s for places like Carrizo Springs, Eagle Pass, and Del Rio. Again, the hill country, Fredericksburg, seeing 19 right now, so already down into the upper teens. 22 in Kerrville. It's 25 out east in Gonzales. As we zoom this out and take a look at the bigger picture here, you can see this Arctic air has really settled into a good chunk of the Lone Star State. It's 11 degrees in Abilene, 11 in Amarillo, 17 just up to our north over there in Waco. And take a look at this, even farther up to the north, Central Plains, northern tier. It is 10 below right now in Omaha, minus 12 in Bismarck, North Dakota. And when you factor in gusty winds, feels like temperatures are even colder. So a good chunk of the lower 48 tapping into this cold air. By the way, that's where wind chill warnings are in place right now. Even some winter storm warnings across the Rockies near Denver, Salt Lake City. More winter storm warnings near Arkansas, the Tennessee River Valley. That does stretch into northeastern Texas. For us here in south central Texas, the San Antonio area near Austin, Waco, we have winter weather advisories in place. This is going to run through noon tomorrow. We also do have hard freeze warnings in place and wind chill advisories in place because, again, once again, especially by Tuesday, those wind chills dropping into the dangerous category, frankly, into the single digits. So again, this winter weather advisory really in place for the potential to see up to about 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulations, where we do manage to find some of this patchy freezing drizzle and freezing rain overnight tonight and through the first half of the day on Monday. So speaking of which, starting to see a few more notable returns out there on your authority radar. This is just to the east of Gonzales, west of Moulton and Shiner. So far eastern Gonzales County there, crossing over Highway 90, approaching 97 there. And really here's I-10, Flatonia and then Schulenburg. A little bit of light freezing rain making its way farther up to the north. And then I was checking out our far southeastern counties near Cuero, Yorktown, out there in DeWitt County. Another little batch, it looks like, of some freezing rain once again working farther up to the north there as well. You make your way closer to San Antonio. This is a little bit of radar noise, by the way. Our radar site that we use for the San Antonio area is actually stationed out in New Braunfels. So we're picking up some ground clutter here. You notice you don't actually see a whole lot when it comes to radar returns. That's because we are dealing with very, very light drizzle and a little bit of mist out there. Now, because of that drizzle and mist, the size of those water particles A, they're really small, and B, they tend to fall below where the radar beam scans. So oftentimes when we do have very, very fine mist or very light drizzle, we actually don't pick it up on authority radar. So this is what we look at. We look at visibility, and exactly in the areas that we were talking about and mentioning a little bit earlier, northern Bexar County, especially as you get up into higher elevations there near Bernie, even Kerrville now, we're starting to see those visibilities come down just a bit, and that does suggest that we have that mist setting in along with some pockets of drizzle. And with temperatures below freezing in those areas, that means that especially on those elevated surfaces, car windshields, street signs, things of that nature, likely over the next couple of hours, while it will be light, starting to see a little bit of a thin glaze develop on those elevated surfaces. Now, surface streets, the ones that are attached closer to the ground, not really anticipating many issues on those surface streets because the ground is a bit warmer. But as you get into the bridges and overpasses, those elevated roadways where those below freezing temperatures are blowing through the space below it, on top of it, those are the ones that tend to cool off quicker. So that's why we monitor those elevated roadways first. They have a tendency to see a little bit of ice, that thin light glaze, develop quicker than surface streets because it takes a while longer for the ground to cool off because of all the heat that we've retained during the day in the past couple of days. Okay, so let's talk about where we're expected to go here in terms of your future cast and the potential for that light freezing drizzle and light rain through the overnight. So already starting to see some of that drizzle develop. By midnight, it's possible we see a few more notable pockets of some of that light freezing rain near San Antonio, up I-35. And then as we head into the overnight hours by 2 a.m., that's when we start to see some of that ramp up just a little bit more in terms of coverage. Chances are going to increase. Hondo, Uvalde, so now down west, down the Highway 90 corridor, could see a little bit of light freezing rain there, even up into the hill country along I-10. And then notice what happens by about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, really along and east of I-35. By wake up time tomorrow, if you do have to go into work tomorrow morning, stepping out for the morning drive, the farther west that you go, temperatures are a little bit warmer, so not really expecting much in terms of freezing rain or freezing drizzle closer to the Rio Grande. It's as you head farther eastward, again by 6 o'clock in the morning, along and east of I-35, even down I-37 east on I-10. If you're planning on driving across any of those major roadways or really just in these areas, Gonzales, San Marcos, New Braunfels, right here in the Alamo City, we are still expecting some of that freezing rain to fall. But then it quickly moves eastward by mid-morning. Now it's just across our far eastern counties near Gonzales, even DeWitt County, as well as Karnes County. By midday, most of that has moved out, and we are just left with the cold. We are left with the clouds, and it will be a bit breezy at times tomorrow as well. So wind chills in the teens and then low 20s into the afternoon are expected. And then I think later in the evening, we could start to see some of that cloud cover break up just a little bit more, which is why temperatures are expected to drop even more so by Tuesday morning. Upper teens expected in terms of the actual air temperature here in San Antonio. So once again, just kind of putting a bow on this particular part of the forecast in terms of that patchy light ice tonight and through Monday morning. The big kicker here is that ice accumulations are going to be pretty light. The drizzle and the light rain not amounting to a whole lot. That is one of the reasons why this little cold spell is nothing like what we saw even last year and back in 2021. Accumulations up to about 1/10 of an inch. So we'll be watching for a few slick spots on bridges and overpasses. If you do have to go into work tomorrow, you're coming into town for the march, please try to avoid those bridges and overpasses if possible, just to be on the safe side. Stay on those alternate routes, frontage roads, surface streets, and things of that nature. If you can't, just know that you could run into a few slick spots and you will want to be extra careful there on the roadways. And then also, as we've been talking about, cars, patios, as well as signs. And speaking of which, one of the reasons, of course, it kind of is similar to the discussion we were talking about with those elevated roadways. One of the reasons why we typically see those elevated items that are not on the ground freeze up first, or at least develop a thin light glaze, is because they're not on the ground. So they actually cool off a lot quicker. This was actually sent in before 6 p.m. from our friend Skywatcher. This was from his elevated wood deck. You could see he had his little temperature wand there, and the temperature of the deck was well below freezing. So as this rain hits those freezing temperatures on all of these different items, street signs, patio furniture, decks, cars, then it freezes on contact, and that's why we see that light glaze then develop. So thank you so much for sending that in, Skywatcher. By the way, safely, of course, if you do have any photos of some of that ice, maybe even tomorrow morning you head outside and you see some of that light glaze on those items outside or whatever it is, if you can snap a picture, we would love to see them and share them. On the bottom of your weather app, there's a little camera icon. That's the KSAT Connect icon, and you can submit your pictures that way. Like I said, it's really nice to see the ground truth of what is actually happening across the area. You're kind of our eyes across South Central Texas whenever y'all do send in those photos, so we would really appreciate that, just to get a really good grasp of what is going on, especially as we head into tomorrow morning. So that does take us into the march. So that's starting at 11 a.m. now, delayed by about an hour. You can see it is just going to be very, very cold. So be careful on your way in, at least traveling, and dress very warmly. Mid-20s by 9 a.m., upper 20s, 11 a.m., and even into the early afternoon. Decreasing rain chances into the afternoon. The cloud cover is still with us for the most part, and again, gusts upwards of about 20 to 25 miles per hour tomorrow, so wind chill values in the teens are expected. And in terms of actual air temperatures tomorrow, you can see that across northern Bexar County, points north, points east, Nixon, Seguin, New Braunfels, Canyon Lake, even over to Kerrville and Comfort, Helotes, Bernie, these areas may struggle to climb above freezing in the afternoon. It's going to be close. It was very similar earlier today. Again, we've got the cloud cover in place for a good portion of the day, so that's going to really limit just how warm we're able to see those temperatures rise. But I do think also, like this afternoon, the farther south and west that you go, we will be able to climb above freezing, but in some spots just barely, and it'll be very brief if we do find that. So just overall, expect a very cold day, and watch out for a thin light glaze first thing tomorrow morning. By the way, meteorologists both Mike Osterhage and Justin Horn are going to be in tomorrow morning. We'll have the latest updates on GMSA. We're going to do more appcasts throughout the morning there as well, keeping you updated on those conditions. And drivetexas.org, that is a great resource to look at if you do have to travel. Go ahead and pull that up before heading out the door tomorrow. So if any pockets of ice have been reported, that will show up, and you're able to plan your drive around that and choose an alternate route there as well. All right, so that takes care of Monday. I know that was a lot of information. Again, not everybody is going to be affected by the light freezing drizzle and freezing rain across all of South Central Texas, but what most people are going to be affected by, of course, is the cold, which is here to stay through at least Wednesday in terms of those hard freezes. So Tuesday morning, we dip down into the upper teens, 19 degrees, that forecast low temperature. Tuesday afternoon, we see a bit more sunshine, so that is going to help our temperatures warm up. Not by much, but I do anticipate us climbing above freezing into Tuesday afternoon. Forecast high in the mid-30s here in San Antonio. Wednesday, the last hard freeze that we have in the forecast with this particular cold spell, temperatures even warmer, mid-40s. So we'll definitely take that, I think, at this point, with more sunshine there too. I do want to talk about those Tuesday morning wind chills because they're just going to be very, very brutal out there. And as that's the same time that folks are headed out to work, if you're off tomorrow and kids are headed back to school, we definitely want to get you the latest and pass the information along about that time frame specifically. So again, we mentioned tomorrow wind gusts upwards of about 20-25 miles per hour. Tuesday, though, we see even healthier north winds move in. So I do think we could see some wind gusts upwards of 30 to even 35 miles per hour. So when you factor in those gusty winds with just the cold air in place, this is the latest for what wind chill values could look like 8 a.m. Tuesday morning. 3 degrees here in San Antonio. That's what it could feel like. And yes, it's possible we see those wind chill values dip down below 0 in a few places. Northwestern Bexar County near Fair Oaks Ranch, Bernie, Kerrville, Bandera over to Lakey. Bottom line, it is going to be a very, very cold and blustery start to the day on Tuesday. So, cannot preach this enough. Please just dress incredibly warm, stay as safe as possible there. Mid-30s Tuesday afternoon, so climbing above freezing here in town. Another hard freeze Wednesday morning, more sunshine, mid-40s there. Then as we look at the back half of the 7-day forecast, Thursday morning, maybe a brief light freeze in a few spots, but nothing like what we will have been dealing with for the past couple of days once we get to that point in time. Thursday, warmer by about 20-degree difference Wednesday into Thursday in terms of those afternoon temperatures in the 60s. Then we see another front work in Thursday night and early Friday. Can't completely rule out a few more light freezes after that into next weekend, but it is not going to be anything like what we're going to be finding over the next couple of days in terms of that Arctic, bitter, cold air. But I do think maybe some upper 20s, low 30s by Saturday morning and then into Sunday, and maybe an isolated chance for liquid rain as we head into Sunday and even into early next week. So I know that was a whole lot of information just kind of being thrown at you as we continue to monitor, yes, this just frigid air in place and the fact that it's going to stick with us over the next couple of days, but also the potential for a little bit of light ice that mainly is just going to affect bridges and overpasses, ramps, that sort of thing. Maybe we'll need to defrost your car windshield first thing tomorrow morning as well. But just a reminder, of course, that we have all of this information, everything that we've talked about today on your KSAT Weather Authority app. We've been updating that constantly with new information as we get that in. We've got some forecast articles up on KSAT.com. We also have an Arctic air tracker there as well that has detailed high-resolution maps of the temperatures here in the San Antonio metro area, across south central Texas, even the state of Texas, and our high-resolution radar up there as well. You can also find that up on KSAT.com. We're going to keep that going through the overnight and into tomorrow as well. And of course, we'll be with you on air, online, right here on your KSAT Weather Authority app as this cold continues over the next couple of days. Again, hard freezes tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, and into Wednesday morning. And then we'll start to climb out of the freezer a little bit more as we head especially into Wednesday afternoon. So we're going to keep eyes on the freezing drizzle that's already been reported near San Antonio International. It's been reported across northern Bexar County, even up into portions of the hill country. We are going to have the latest updates tonight on the night beat. So hopefully we will catch you there. Again, be careful out there on those elevated roadways tomorrow morning. We're going to get through this. It'll be cold over the next several days, but we're going to get through this. So just make sure that we bundle up and stay safe out there in this cold weather. All right, have a fantastic rest of your evening. We're going to get ready for the night beat. So we'll catch y'all a little bit later at 10 p.m. on KSAT 12. Y'all have a great night.